Hello, my amazing friends. Welcome to our channel, English Story Mindset, the place where you get inspiring, life-changing, and motivational stories that also help improve your English. Today, I am bringing you one of the most powerful, emotional, and unbelievable success stories of all time, the story of Colonel Sanders and how he created KFC at the age of 65. However, before we start, let me ask you something. Are you 25 and feeling like a failure? Are you 40, still struggling and thinking it's too late for success? Are you jobless and feeling worthless? Do you look at successful people and think, maybe success is not for me? If you answered yes to any of these questions, let me stop you right there. You are not a failure, and it is not too late. You still have time, and today I will prove it to you, because Colonel Sanders, the creator of KFC, failed repeatedly throughout his life. He was completely broke at 65, jobless, with no hope or future. But at 65, when most people choose to retire, he created a billion-dollar empire. Therefore, listen carefully, because after hearing his story, you will realize that success has no age limit. Failure is simply part of the journey. If you love inspiring and motivational content, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Please like this video so more people can see it, and comment below, "I will never give up," to show your commitment. Since I bring you the best motivational and educational stories every day, make sure you are part of this journey. Now, let's dive into the unbelievable story of Colonel Sanders, the man who turned failure into a billion-dollar success. To look at the beginning, let's go back in time to September 9th, 1890. A little boy named Harlan David Sanders was born in a small house in Henryville, Indiana, USA. From the very beginning, life was extremely hard for him. When Harlan was just 5 years old, something terrible happened. His father passed away suddenly, leaving his mother alone with 3 children. Now imagine being a 5-year-old child, waking up one morning and realizing that your father is never coming back. Although his mother was heartbroken, she did not have time to cry. She had to work day and night to feed her children. Do you know what that meant for little Harlan? At just 5 years old, he had to take care of the entire house. He cooked for his family, took care of his younger siblings, and did all the household chores. Surprisingly, this is where something amazing happened. Harlan discovered his love for cooking. However, little did he know that this small love for cooking would one day change the world. School was not an option. Harlan was a smart boy, but life did not allow him to study. At 7 years old, he started working on a farm, and by 10, he was working as a full-time farmhand. Guess how much he was paid? Only $2 per month. Yes, just $2 for working the entire month. Can you imagine how hard his life was? By the time Harlan was 12 years old, he had had enough. His mother remarried, and his stepfather was abusive. One day he decided, "I can't live here anymore." Therefore, at just 12 years old, he ran away from home. From this point on, his life became even harder, starting when he worked as a streetcar conductor. He worked as a firefighter, a steam engine stoker, and a soldier in the U.S. Army. In addition, he worked as a salesman, a railroad worker, and an insurance agent. He tried everything, but unfortunately, he failed at everything. Every time he tried to settle down in a job, something would go wrong and he was fired multiple times. As a result, he was broke again and again. By the time he turned 40 years old, he still had nothing. Finally, at the age of 40, he managed to get a small petrol station in Kentucky. He thought to himself, "This is my chance." He started selling fried chicken to travelers, and guess what? People absolutely loved his chicken. Slowly, word spread, and more people came to try his special chicken recipe. After so many failures, it really looked like his life was finally changing for the better. But then, something terrible happened. The government built a new highway. Just like that, his petrol station was finished. Once again, he became broke, jobless, and hopeless. However,
Here is the important thing about Colonel Sanders. He was not an ordinary man. He was a true fighter. Instead of giving up, he decided to start over again. Yet, life was not done testing him. After losing his petrol station and restaurant, Sanders had to find any kind of work just to survive. At 44 years old, he got a job as a cook in a small cafeteria. At 48 years old, he worked as a dishwasher, and at 50, he worked as a motel manager. But every time he thought he had found stability, something went wrong. He was fired, he lost money, and he was forced to move to a new place. Absolutely nothing worked out. He even tried opening another restaurant, but a fire unexpectedly burned it down. Imagine this situation. You lose your father at 5, you're forced to work as a child, and you run away from home at 12. Then you do over 20 different jobs and fail at all of them. You start a business at 40 and it fails, and when you try again, it burns down. Most people would definitely give up by now. They would say, maybe I am just meant to be poor. But not Sanders. He completely refused to believe he was a failure. Even though his life was a total mess, there was still one thing he possessed that nobody else did: his secret fried chicken recipe. That recipe was truly special because people loved his chicken. Therefore, he had an interesting idea. Instead of opening a restaurant again, he thought, what if I sell my recipe to restaurant owners and get a small commission on every piece of chicken they sell? It sounded like a crazy idea, and nobody had ever done this before. But Sanders had absolutely nothing to lose. He was already broke and already failing. So, at 62 years old, he took his chicken recipe, put on his iconic white suit, and started knocking on doors. You go to the first restaurant and they laugh at you. You go to the next one and they tell you to leave. You go to another and they say, this will never work. This painful process happened again and again. It happened 1 time, 10 times, 50 times, and even 100 times, but he kept going. At an age when most people choose to retire, he was traveling across America, sleeping in his car, eating cheap meals, and facing constant rejection every single day. Then came the first yes. Finally, after exactly 1,009 rejections, one restaurant owner said yes, and that single yes was all he needed. That first yes changed everything. Slowly, one by one, more restaurant owners agreed to use his recipe. Consequently, his idea was working, and people started loving his chicken. Then, at 65 years old, something unbelievable happened: the birth of KFC. A businessman saw what Sanders was doing and offered to invest in his idea. Together, they created Kentucky Fried Chicken, known globally as KFC. And just like that, a man who was broke and jobless at 62 had built a multi-million-dollar business by the age of 65. Just imagine this. One day you were poor, nobody respects you, and everyone laughs at you. Then suddenly you become the founder of a global brand. This was truly the beginning of something huge. Colonel Sanders had finally done it. At 65 years old, when most people choose to retire, he built KFC from absolutely nothing. The same man who had lost everything multiple times was now the founder of what would soon become one of the most famous food chains in the world. His unique way of frying chicken with 11 secret herbs and spices was something that nobody had ever tasted before. It was crispy, juicy, and full of flavor. As a result, people started lining up outside restaurants just to get a taste of it. Within a few years, KFC had hundreds of locations across America. By the time Sanders was 73 years old, KFC had over 600 restaurants. However, there was one big problem. Colonel Sanders was not a businessman. He was a cook. He loved making chicken and serving people, but he hated dealing with complex business problems. Running a huge company was simply too much for him. He was old and tired, having spent his entire life struggling. Even after achieving massive success, he still had no peace. He was traveling across America trying to manage everything, but he felt like he was losing control. The company was growing too fast, and he was too old to handle it alone. Therefore, he made a big decision. In 1964, at the age of 73, Colonel Sanders decided to sell KFC to a group of investors for $2 million. That may not sound like a lot of money today, but back then, $2 million was a huge amount. In today's value, it would be around $20 million. But here is the shocking part. He sold KFC for just $2 million, but today, KFC is worth over $15 billion. Yes, you read that right. The brand he created was worth thousands of times more than what he sold it for. Unfortunately, this decision would haunt him for the rest of his life. After selling KFC, Sanders thought he would finally rest and enjoy life because he had money, fame, and success. But a big problem appeared. The new owners of KFC started changing things. Specifically, they began using cheaper ingredients to make more profit. When Sanders saw what was happening, he was furious and felt completely betrayed. KFC was his life's work. He had suffered for 65 years to build something amazing, and now, in just a few years, these businessmen were ruining everything. So, even though he had sold the company, he could not stay silent. He started publicly criticizing KFC, even saying, "That stuff they serve today is not my recipe. It's terrible." But no matter how much he complained, he could not take back the company. It was simply too late. He had sold it, and now he had to live with that decision, which became his biggest regret. Yet even after selling KFC, Sanders did not stop working.
He was still passionate about food, so he started another restaurant called Claudia Sanders Dinner House, named after his wife. However, legally, he could not use the name KFC anymore. Still, he kept traveling the world, visiting KFC locations, meeting fans, and spreading his story. Consequently, he became one of the most famous and loved businessmen in the world. People saw him as a symbol of hard work, never giving up, and proof that success has no age limit. But soon, his time was coming to an end. In 1980, at the age of 90, Colonel Sanders passed away. His life had been a long journey of pain, struggle, failure, and success. He had lived through the loss of his father at 5 years old, running away from home at 12, doing more than 20 different jobs and failing at most of them, starting his first business at 40 and losing it, going broke at 62 and sleeping in his car, and getting rejected 909 times before finding success. He became a millionaire at 73, regretted selling his company, but still left behind a massive empire. Today, KFC has more than 27,000 restaurants in over 150 countries. It is one of the biggest food brands in the world, and it all started with one old man who refused to give up. Here is what you can learn from his inspiring story. First of all, age is just a number. Colonel Sanders did not become successful until he was in his 60s, which clearly shows us that it is never too late to start chasing your dreams. Secondly, failure is not the end. Sanders faced continuous rejection. However, instead of giving up, he kept pushing forward. He learned valuable lessons from each failure and constantly improved his strategy. Furthermore, persistence always pays off. Sanders was rejected 1,009 times. While most people would have given up long before that, he kept going, and his deep perseverance eventually paid off. Another lesson is to follow your passion. Sanders was incredibly passionate about cooking and serving delicious food. It was exactly this passion that drove him forward, even during the toughest times in his life. Moreover, you must always believe in yourself. Despite facing heavy obstacles that would have broken most people, Sanders truly believed in himself and his product. He completely refused to let other people's negative opinions define his future. Colonel Sanders' story serves as a perfect example of what can happen when you refuse to give up. Whether you are 25 or 65 years old, you always possess the power to change your life completely. You can take full control of your future and make your dreams a reality. The only thing standing in your way is your choice to keep going or to give up when times get tough. Therefore, if you are facing struggles right now, please remember this: you are not alone.
You can still achieve your dreams, and no matter how old you are, you still have plenty of time to succeed. So, take action today. If you were inspired by Harlan Sanders' incredible journey, do not let fear or doubt hold you back. Take one small step today toward your dreams, whether it's starting a new business, learning a new skill, or simply making a clear plan. Remember, success is not a straight line. It's a journey filled with ups and downs. But if you persist, you will definitely get there. No matter where you currently are in life, it is never too late to start over again and make your dreams come true. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories that can change your life. And as always, do not give up. If you enjoyed this story and want to improve your English every day, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new lesson. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.